For years, I watched my sister take all the credit for everything I built. She took the spotlight, and I stayed in the shadows, quietly making the business a success. But what happens when the truth finally comes out? What happens when you stop letting someone else rewrite your story and you take control of your own destiny? Trust me, you won't believe the moment when I revealed who was really behind the success. And her reaction was priceless. My name is Mia. I'm the one who gets things done, always behind the scenes, making sure everything works like a well-oiled machine. I never asked for the spotlight, never needed it. I preferred to stay in the shadows, quietly pushing the company forward while my sister Layla took all the credit. People always assumed she was the brains behind the family business, but the truth was far different. What they didn't know, what they'd never know, was that I was the one who made it all happen, and I was about to make sure they finally understood. Layla and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, she was always the golden child, the one who got all the attention, the accolades, and the praise. Our parents practically handed her everything on a silver platter, while I was expected to be the responsible one, the one who kept things running smoothly. It was fine for a while, maybe even natural, but over the years, as we stepped into the family business, things started to shift. Layla's charm, her ability to sell anything to anyone, made her the face of the company. She quickly became the public figure, the one everyone credited with our success. No one knew that behind the polished smile and perfectly curated social media posts, I was the one making the hard decisions, managing the finances, and keeping the business afloat. It didn't bother me at first. I was used to being the unsung hero. But as time passed, the resentment started to build. Layla took more and more credit for my hard work. She would stand in front of clients, speaking with so much confidence about how she had built the company from the ground up, while I sat quietly in the back, watching, and the worst part? No one ever questioned it. No one ever asked, "Wait, Mia, what role did you play in all of this?" My role was always the same, silent, supporting, behind the scenes. I kept my head down, did the work, and hoped that one day someone would notice. But Layla? She basked in the spotlight. She took the praise, the accolades, and the attention. She was the one who got the interviews, the sponsorship deals, and the recognition from industry leaders. And she loved it. She thrived on it. But deep down, I knew the truth. I knew what was really going on, and I knew how to make sure everyone else knew it too. I had never planned on confronting Layla. I figured she would continue to take the credit, and I would continue to work quietly in the background. That was until the board meeting a few weeks ago. Layla had just announced yet another new partnership, one that she had arranged with a major investor. The deal was huge, one that would secure the company's future for years to come. She stood at the front of the room, smiling like she just won a championship, while the rest of the team clapped and praised her for her vision and leadership. It was the same routine, the same performance she had always put on. But that day, something inside me snapped. I realized I was tired of being invisible. I was tired of letting her take credit for everything I had done. So I made a decision, a bold one that would change everything. I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I was going to make sure the world knew who really made the business successful. It wasn't going to be easy. Layla had built an empire of her own with all the media attention, all the recognition, and all the support from our parents. But I had something she didn't. Control over the one thing that mattered most in our family business. The numbers, the records, the data. I knew exactly how she'd been manipulating the story to fit her narrative, and I had the power to expose it all. I spent the next few days gathering the information I needed, financial records, emails, and internal documents that would show the truth about Layla's so-called vision. She hadn't built anything. She had merely taken the pieces I'd put together and rearranged them to make it look like she was the mastermind. It was time to turn the tables. The plan was simple, but it would have one hell of an impact. I would present the truth, on my terms, at the next big company event. I didn't need a big confrontation. I didn't need to shout or accuse. All I needed was one carefully crafted moment, one moment that would make Layla realize that the game was over. The truth was coming, and she wouldn't be able to deny it. As the days passed, I could feel the weight of what I was about to do. It wasn't just about exposing Layla for the fraud she was. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine, my place in the company, my recognition, and my peace of mind. I wasn't just taking back credit, I was taking back my voice. It was time for the world to see the real Mia, the one who had been overlooked for far too long. I took a deep breath and clicked send on the final email to myself. The plan was in motion. The week leading up to the event felt like a pressure cooker. Every morning I woke up, my mind raced with thoughts of the reveal. Would Layla catch on? Would she try to undermine me before I had the chance to expose the truth? I couldn't afford to second guess myself now. I had worked too hard for too long, keeping everything together while she soaked up the glory. This was my moment, my time to make sure the world finally knew who had been pulling the strings all along. The event was just a few days away. It was the company's annual gala, a night where all the key players, clients, and partners would be present. Layla loved these events. She was the center of attention, effortlessly charming everyone in the room with her radiant smile and flawless speeches. She had this way of making everyone feel special, making them believe she was the one who had built the business from scratch, and that was exactly why this was the perfect setting. I knew that if I played my cards right, I could change the narrative in a way that no one would forget. I spent hours every night carefully crafting my presentation. It wasn't going to be some dramatic confrontation. No, that would be too obvious, too messy. Instead, I decided to take a different approach. An approach that would make Layla's manipulation undeniable, even to those who had always blindly supported her. I would reveal the truth through the numbers, through the documents I had meticulously compiled over the years. I would show them the work I had done, the decisions I had made, and the countless hours I had spent making the company run smoothly. I wasn't going to yell or accuse. I was going to let the evidence speak for itself. The night of the gala arrived, and I walked into the venue with a calm demeanor. The room was already filled with the usual crowd, clients mingling, partners exchanging pleasantries, and Layla, of course, holding court in the center of it all. She was dressed in a stunning black gown, her hair perfectly styled, flashing that smile that everyone seemed to fall for. I couldn't help but feel a mixture of admiration and resentment. She was good at this, so good at playing the role, but tonight she wouldn't get away with it. I took my place at the back of the room, watching as Layla made her rounds, shaking hands and making small talk. She was oblivious to the fact that everything was about to change. As the evening went on, I kept my eyes on her, noticing how she commanded the attention of the room, how effortlessly she deflected any mention of me or the work I had done. It was as if I didn't even exist in the narrative. But in just a few hours, that was going to change. The speeches began, and the room quieted down as Layla took her place at the podium. She was poised, confident, and full of charm, as always. "I'm so proud of what we've accomplished this year," she said, her voice smooth and practiced. "This company is what it is because of the hard work and dedication of all our employees. I want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment. Together, we've achieved great things." Her words were the same tired cliches, the same spiel she had given 1,000 times before. But tonight, I was going to make sure her words were exposed for the hollow lies they were. After the applause subsided, Layla made her way back to her seat, her head held high. I stood up and walked toward the front of the room, the silence in the air thick with anticipation. As I approached the podium, I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me. This was it. My heart pounded in my chest, but I didn't show it. I was calm, composed. I was in control. I took the microphone in my hand, smiled briefly at the crowd, and then began. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Mia." I paused for a moment, letting the weight of my words sink in. "I know many of you may not know me as well as you know my sister Layla, but I've been here from the beginning, working, building, and supporting this company in ways that most of you don't see. And tonight, I want to share something with you. Something that needs to be known." I clicked a button on my laptop, and the first slide appeared behind me. It was a detailed financial report, one that I had worked on for months. "This," I said, pointing to the screen, "is the reality of our success. These numbers represent the hard work that goes into every decision we make. Mima, the strategy, the planning, the late nights. What you don't know is that for years I've been the one making these decisions. I've been the one keeping the business afloat. A murmur spread across the room as the audience began to realize where I was headed. I clicked to the next slide. It was an email exchange between Layla and me, one that showed my role in negotiating one of our most successful contracts. I'd always let her take credit for it, never wanting to stir the pot. But tonight, I was exposing the truth. Here's an example, I continued. Layla was never involved in these negotiations. It was me, doing the groundwork, handling the details, and ensuring the deal went through. But she was the one who stood in front of the cameras and took the applause. The room grew quiet as the evidence continued to mount. I showed them the planning documents, the internal strategy sessions, and the countless hours I had spent working on the business, while Layla enjoyed her spotlight. Each slide I revealed was like another piece of the puzzle falling into place, revealing the truth for everyone to see. The truth that Layla had been pretending to be the mastermind behind our success, when in fact, it had always been me pulling the strings. By the time I finished my presentation, there was no denying it. The room was stunned into silence. Layla sat in the back, her face drained of color. She was speechless, unable to do anything but watch as the truth unraveled before her eyes. I could feel her eyes burning into me, but I didn't flinch. I was done playing the part of the invisible sister. It was my time to shine, even if it was at her expense. I took a deep breath and addressed the room one final time. This company has been successful not because of anyone's charm or ability to sell a story. It's been successful because of the people who do the hard work behind the scenes. And that's me. I've always been here, always working, always making sure everything runs smoothly. And I think it's time you all knew that. I turned and walked off the stage, the weight of the moment settling into my chest. The room was still silent, but I knew that silence would soon turn into something else. It would turn into realization. And soon, Layla would have to face the consequences of pretending that she had done it all. As I made my way back to my seat, I felt a strange sense of relief. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. The truth was out, and I had no regrets. The battle had just begun. The room stayed silent for what felt like an eternity after I left the stage. The air was thick with tension, every single person in the room unsure of how to process the revelation. I could feel the weight of every gaze on me as I walked back to my seat, but I didn't look back. I wasn't there to gain anyone's approval. I wasn't there to be validated. I had just exposed the truth, and that was all that mattered. Layla sat still, her face pale, her lips pressed into a tight line. I could see her fingers clutching the edge of the table as if trying to hold on to some semblance of control, but there was no denying it. She had been caught. Her carefully constructed image, the one she had spent years building, was now in ruins. The audience was still processing, whispering among themselves, and some even started to leave, clearly unsure of how to act. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable for me. It was satisfying. For once, I was not the one hiding in the background. I was the one in control. I let the discomfort linger, knowing that Layla was reeling. She was the one who had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. But tonight, that illusion had been shattered. I sat quietly watching the events unfold as the room buzzed with low conversations. People were still looking at me, but this time, it wasn't with pity or indifference. It was with recognition. I had just done something no one else had dared to do before. After a few minutes, Layla finally stood up. Her face was flushed with anger, but she tried to maintain her composure as best as she could. She made her way to the front of the room, taking the microphone from the stand. "Mia," she said, her voice wavering slightly, though she tried to mask it with false confidence. "You've made your point, but let's be clear about something. You've only revealed half the story. You think you've exposed something big, but in reality, all you've done is air our dirty laundry in front of people who don't deserve to be dragged into this." I raised an eyebrow, keeping my gaze steady. "You think you deserve more credit than me?" she continued, her voice growing stronger. "You think the success of this company is because of you, and only you, but you forget something. Without me, this company would be nothing. People wouldn't even know we exist. They know me, Mia. They know my face. You're just the numbers person." There it was, the same tired rhetoric. Layla had always relied on her ability to charm and manipulate people into thinking she was the mastermind. She couldn't stand the idea that I had exposed her for what she really was, someone who took credit for others' hard work while hiding behind her charisma and looks. "I don't need the applause, Layla," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I've never needed it, but the truth is, I've been carrying this company on my back for years while you've been enjoying the spotlight. And now everyone knows the truth. This company didn't get to where it is because of you. It got here because of the work I did, the decisions I made, and the hours I sacrificed." Her eyes narrowed as she glared at me. "So what's your plan now, Mia?" she sneered. "You think you can just walk in here and take over? What exactly do you want from all of this? A pat on the back?" I felt a surge of anger rise up within me, but I controlled it. "I don't want anything from you, Layla. I've been doing this for years, and I'm done being invisible. I'm done being the person you use to make your life easier. I'm taking what's mine. This company is mine too, and I won't let you keep playing the part of the hero anymore." Her jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought she might actually say something that would ignite a full-blown confrontation. But she didn't. She stood there trying to salvage the last bit of dignity she had left, but it was too late. The damage had been done. The people in the room knew the truth now, and Layla's manipulations were exposed. For the rest of the evening, Layla didn't speak much. She drifted around the room, giving half-hearted smiles and awkward handshakes to the people who had once praised her. But now, there was a sense of doubt in the air. People no longer looked at her with the same admiration. They were looking at her differently, as if they were starting to see the cracks in the facade she had so carefully built. As the event drew to a close, Layla came up to me one last time. She was trying to maintain her composure, but I could see the frustration and anger behind her eyes. She was no longer the confident woman who commanded attention in the room. She was just another person trying to hold on to something slipping away from her. "Mia, this isn't over," she said quietly, her voice filled with a venom I hadn't heard before. "You've made your move, but trust me, there's more to the story. Don't think this is the end." I looked at her, my expression unreadable. "I don't need any more of your lies, Layla. The truth is out, and there's nothing you can do to change it. I've been quiet for too long. Now I'm taking my place." I turned my back on her and walked out of the venue, my mind racing with the possibilities. I had done what I set out to do. Layla was no longer the golden child in our family business. The power dynamics had shifted, and I was finally ready to take control. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her take all the credit anymore. The future of the company was mine just as much as it was hers, and I was going to make sure everyone knew that from now on. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The first step was done. The world had seen the truth, and I wasn't going to stop until I took what was rightfully mine. The next few days were a whirlwind. What I had done at the gala wasn't just a personal statement, it was a declaration of war. Layla may have tried to brush it off with her usual charm, but I could see it in the way people looked at her now. The cracks were beginning to show. The first sign came the morning after the event when I received a call from our legal team. The subject was a potential lawsuit. Apparently, Layla wasn't taking the exposure of her actions lying down. She had already started her counterattack, claiming that I had defamed her publicly and jeopardized the company's reputation. She was already playing the victim, twisting the narrative to make it look like I was the one in the wrong. At first, I wanted to laugh. The audacity. Here she was, pretending to be the one who'd been wronged, while she had spent years hiding behind my hard work. But then I realized something. I wasn't just fighting her for control over the company. This was a battle for the narrative, and I wasn't about to let her write it. The lawsuit threat was just the beginning. The next day, a few of our major clients reached out to me, questioning the stability of the business. They were nervous, uncertain of the future with the new, unsettling information that had come to light. Some were still loyal to Layla, believing in the image she had crafted for herself over the years, while others were beginning to see the cracks in her carefully constructed facade. I sat in my office, sipping my coffee, knowing that the true test was about to begin. This was the moment I had been waiting for. Had it the chance to prove that I was the one who had always kept the business afloat, not Layla. The company's future didn't rest on charm or appearances. It rested on the work behind the scenes, the work I had been doing for years. If I didn't act now, I risked losing everything. I had already sent out a series of communications to our clients, detailed, transparent, and full of the kind of information that Layla would never have bothered to share. I wasn't going to hide behind carefully crafted messages or let her control the story. The world needed to see the truth, and I was going to make sure they did. That's when Savannah, one of the few people who truly knew what was going on, called me. She had been in the trenches with me, watching as Layla took all the credit and disregarded my contributions. She was the one who had encouraged me to take action, to make the truth known, and now, as always, she was there for me. Mia, she said, her voice calm but laced with determination. I know things are crazy right now, but you've got to stay focused. You know what's at stake here. This isn't just about the company, it's about your future too. You've got to take the next step. I nodded, staring out the window. The city was bustling outside, oblivious to the storm that was brewing within the walls of the company. I know, but it's not just about proving I'm right anymore. Layla's making this about something else. She's turning this into a personal attack, and I can't let her control the narrative. I'm not just going to wait for her to take me down. I need to hit back harder. Savannah was silent for a moment. What are you thinking? I took a deep breath. I'm going to take the company public. Her response was instant. Wait, what? I've been thinking about it for a while, I continued, my voice steady as I began outlining the plan. If we go public, there's no going back. It's a big risk, but if I do it right, it will completely shift the power dynamics. Layla won't be able to control the company anymore. I'll have the leverage, and she won't be able to hide behind that fake image she's built. I could hear the hesitation in Savannah's voice. That's a huge step, Mia. Are you sure? I smiled slightly, even though I knew she couldn't see me. I'm sure. I've been the one making all the decisions anyway. This is the final piece to cement my place. It's the only way I'm going to get the control I deserve, and it will put an end to Layla's reign of manipulation. Savannah was quiet for a beat, then sighed. All right, you've got this. Just make sure you're ready for the fallout. This will change everything. I didn't need to be reminded. I had thought it all through. Going public was a gamble, but it was one I was willing to take. I had already put the wheels in motion, working with our financial team to prepare the company for an IPO. It was bold, risky, and ambitious, but it was the only way to shift the power back into my hands, and I wasn't going to stop until it was done. The next few days were a blur of meetings, negotiations, and strategy sessions. Layla, of course, had no idea what I was planning. She was too busy playing her victim card and trying to gather support from the board members who still worshipped her image. It didn't matter. I was steps ahead of her, and soon enough she would see how wrong she had been. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when our legal team finalized the paperwork for the IPO. We had everything ready to go. I had been meticulous in making sure the launch went off without a hitch. Once it was official, there would be no going back. Layla would no longer be able to claim sole ownership of the company or the credit for its success. The day we went public was surreal. I stood in the office, watching as the ticker symbol for our company appeared on the screen, the announcement going live to thousands of investors. The noise, the flashing numbers, the excitement. It was everything I had imagined. But as I stood there taking it all in, I couldn't help but think of Layla. She had no idea what had just happened. I sent her a message, short to the point. You wanted control. Now it's mine. The company's going public today. The silence from her end was deafening, but I didn't care. I had already won. The company was mine. I wasn't going to let her take credit for something that had been built with my blood, sweat, and tears. Not anymore. As the day wore on, the news started to spread. Investors, media outlets, and business analysts were buzzing about our IPO. Everyone was focused on the success of the company, and Layla was nowhere to be seen. The game had changed, and I was finally in control. The world would know the truth, and nothing was going to stop me now. The days following the IPO were a whirlwind. Our stocks surged, investors were eager to get in on the company's future, and the press couldn't get enough of our story. The company was officially on the map, and it was clear who had made it happen. But for all the external validation, one thing weighed on my mind. Layla. She was quiet at first, probably trying to gather her thoughts and plan her next move. But I knew she couldn't stay silent for long. After all, she was the queen of the stage, the one who thrived on attention, recognition, and control. And she wasn't about to let me take it all from her without a fight. It wasn't long before I got the first call from her. The number flashed on my phone, and for a second I hesitated. What could she possibly want now? I had already done what I set out to do, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. I picked up. Mia. Her voice was cold, clipped. You think you've won, don't you? I leaned back in my chair, the weight of everything finally sinking in. I haven't won anything. I've just made sure the truth is finally out there. There was a long pause, and then she spoke again, her voice almost venomous. You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about the company. You've made this personal. And you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to let you run this into the ground just because you couldn't handle being in my shadow. I could hear the frustration in her voice, the sound of someone who had just lost control. And for a brief moment, I felt a pang of something I hadn't expected. Sympathy, but it was fleeting, because I knew that this was the exact moment I had been waiting for. I'm not trying to run anything into the ground, Layla, I said calmly. I'm just finally claiming my space. I've been in your shadow for years, letting you take the credit while I did the work. It's time for things to change. This company, the success, the future, it belongs to both of us. But you've been too busy playing the part of the victim to see it. Her tone became sharper, more defensive. I built this company. I gave you everything. I gave you a role. You should have been grateful. But no, you had to go and ruin everything. Ruin everything? I repeated, my voice firm now. I didn't ruin anything. I gave you the space you wanted, the recognition you craved, and the applause you deserved. But now it's time for everyone to see what I've done. You didn't build this alone, Layla. You didn't build it at all. I did, and it's about time the world saw that. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end, and then Layla finally spoke, her voice quieter now, almost resigned. You think you can take everything, don't you? The business, the power, the control. What's next, Mia? Are you going to destroy me publicly too? I paused, letting her words hang in the air for a moment. I don't want to destroy you. I don't need to do that. You've already done that to yourself. You've built a house of cards, Layla, and all I did was expose the truth. I hung up the phone without another word. It was done. There was no more room for negotiation, no more room for her to twist the narrative. Layla had been the one who manipulated the situation for so long, but now the tables had turned. The public knew the truth. I had reclaimed my place in the company, and there was no going back. But that wasn't the end of it. Layla's reaction to all of this wasn't just emotional, it was destructive. She started making calls, rallying support, trying to convince people that I had betrayed her, that I was destroying everything she had worked for. She turned on every charm, every ounce of manipulation she could muster, to try to win back her position and make me look like the villain. It didn't work, not anymore. People had seen the cracks in her facade, and they weren't going to ignore them again. The board members who had always been loyal to her started reaching out to me. They were hesitant at first, unsure of where they stood in all of this. But one by one, they began to shift their allegiance. They started questioning the way things had been run, the way Layla had operated behind the scenes. They realized that the future of the company didn't lie in the hands of someone who was only interested in self-promotion. It lay with someone who was ready to make the hard decisions and steer the business toward a better future. I sat in my office, staring at the company's new public listing, watching the stock numbers rise steadily. There was a new energy in the air, a sense of excitement, of anticipation. The future was wide open, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what lay ahead. I had fought for this moment, and now it was mine. Layla might have been the face of the company, but I was the heart. And it was time everyone knew it. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, press conferences, and restructuring. The company was beginning to grow in ways it never had before, all because I had finally stepped up and taken control. Layla, on the other hand, had retreated into herself. She started distancing herself from the business, trying to recover from the public fallout, and it became clear that she wasn't going to be able to recover from this. The foundation she had built, on lies, on manipulation, was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. And then, one day, she showed up at my office. I wasn't expecting her, but when I saw her standing in the doorway, I knew this was the moment she had been building toward. The last act of defiance. She didn't speak at first. She just stood there, her posture stiff, her eyes full of something I couldn't quite place. It wasn't anger or resentment, it was something worse. It was defeat. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I thought you were my sister, Mia. I thought you had my back." I stood up slowly, meeting her gaze. "I've always had your back, Layla, but you never had mine. You took everything I did and turned it into your own success. I let you, but I won't anymore." Her eyes filled with frustration, and for a moment I thought she might lash out, but instead, she turned and walked out of the room. The door clicked shut behind her, and the weight of it all hit me. This wasn't just about the business anymore. This was about something deeper, something that had been festering for years. I had taken back my place, my voice, and my power. And for the first time in a long time, I was at peace with it. The company was thriving, the future was mine. And no matter what Layla did, there was nothing she could do to take it from me. The following months felt like a blur, but a blur filled with purpose and clarity. Everything that I had worked for, everything that I had kept quiet about for so long, was finally coming into focus. The company was thriving. We were hitting targets, expanding into new markets, and the numbers were better than I ever imagined. It was no longer just my name on the balance sheet. We were building something real, something sustainable, and I was finally standing at the center of it. Layla, on the other hand, had disappeared from the picture. Oh, she still made the occasional public appearance, attending some charity event or popping up in a few social media photos, but she had lost the influence she once wielded. Her power was gone, and it wasn't because I had taken it. It was because she had never built anything that was hers in the first place. She had only built an illusion, and illusions can only last so long before they crumble. I ran into her once, a few weeks after the IPO, at a restaurant. She was sitting with a group of people, but as soon as she saw me, her eyes darkened. She didn't say anything, and neither did I. I hadn't planned on confronting her. There was nothing left to say. The game had changed, and I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. I had stopped seeking her approval the moment I decided to take control. I wasn't the person who needed validation anymore. I didn't need her to approve of me, and I didn't need her to give me permission to succeed. What happened between us, the fight for the business, the battles fought in boardrooms and behind closed doors, wasn't just about who controlled the company. It was about finding my place in the world, claiming the credit that was mine, and finally seeing that my hard work mattered. For years, I had let her take it. For years, I had let her claim the victories that weren't hers to claim. But I had stopped that. Now, I had something bigger than just the business. I had my own voice. I had my self-worth. Sometimes late at night, I would think back to the way things used to be, to the quiet moments when I worked behind the scenes, building the business brick by brick, while everyone else, including Layla, played their parts in the spotlight. It was difficult in the beginning to break away from the shadows. But now, every time I looked at the company's name on the ticker, every time I saw our success, I felt a quiet sense of pride, not just for the company, but for me. A few months after the IPO, I received an email from an old client of ours, a large international firm that had been a major partner during the early years of the business. The message was simple, congratulatory even. "Mia, we've been following the company's recent developments. We're excited about what the future holds with you at the helm. You've built something incredible." I couldn't help but smile. The confirmation that I was finally seen, finally recognized for the work I had done, meant more than any amount of praise Layla could have ever given me. This was mine. This was earned. And just like that, the story was written. Not by Layla's smiles or her perfectly crafted narratives. Not by her ability to talk circles around everyone. But by the work done, the decisions made, and the commitment shown by someone who had always been behind the scenes. Now, I wasn't behind the scenes anymore. I was here. I was leading, and the future was mine for the taking. There were no more games to play, no more pretending. The company was in my hands, the team trusted me, and my own path was clear. There were no more shadows to hide in, no more waiting for someone else to shine a light on my contributions. The light was mine now. As I sat in my office one evening watching the sunset over the skyline, I thought about everything that had happened: the lies, the betrayals, the fight for control. It had all led me here, to this moment, to this place. I wasn't just a player in the game anymore, I was the one holding the cards. The weight of it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt right. The battle had been long and it had been hard, but I had finally won. And it wasn't just a victory over Layla, it was a victory over myself, over my doubts, over the part of me that had always thought I wasn't enough. I had proven that I was more than enough, and in the end, that was the most important thing of all. I smiled softly to myself, standing up to face the world that was now mine. The future had always been there. I just had to take it,